The federal government has launched Federal Treasury Receipt, FTR, a groundbreaking reform offering a single, standardized and digitally verifiable proof of all payments into federal coffers. The system aims to ensure that every government-issued receipt directly corresponds to funds received into government accounts, thus strengthening accountability, closing revenue leakages, and improving public trust in the management of national resources. Commenting on the historic fiscal transformation, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, said the launch of FTR together with CBS and WebUp marked a new era of transparency and accountability in public finance. FTR and CBS are currently undergoing a 30-day pilot program across 10 federal agencies, during which performance, compliance, and stakeholder adoption are being rigorously tested. This was gathered by this day. The initiative is part of the reform by the coordinating minister to rein in wastages, leakages, and abuses and infuse more transparency and accountability in revenue collection and management processes. The House of Representatives has launched fresh investigations into major public safety and accountability failures from a failed multi-million-dollar CCTV project in Abuja due to concerns over finance institutions and fatal road accidents. Arise correspondent Adesua Giwa-Osage reports.
The House of Representatives is investigating the rising insecurity in the FCT despite a $460 million CCTV project funded by a Chinese loan during the Goodluck Jonathan administration.
Despite this huge investment, as well as the financial burden Nigeria is subjected to by way of servicing this loan, the impact of the CCTV is not felt in any manner. Rather than abating, crime rate has soared in Abuja.
Because it has even gone to the extent that criminals sponsor people to sabotage that particular CCTV camera because a proper feasibility study has not been carried out.
An ad hoc committee is to probe the project and determine why it failed to deliver, as reps argue that the impact of the project is not felt in Abuja. In another motion, lawmakers agreed to investigate Nigeria's development finance institutions, focusing on fund utilization, transparency, and performance.
Those institutions were created to bridge financing gaps in key sectors, promote inclusive economic growth, stimulate industrialization, create jobs, and provide affordable credit and financial advisory services to individuals.
The House also moved to address deadly tanker explosions and fatal accidents along the Bida-Lambata Road in Niger State.
Further concern that the continued neglect of this vital highway has resulted in frequent gridlocks, destruction of goods, loss of productive hours, and severe hardship for commuters and residents, while turning the road into a death trap for motorists, tanker drivers, and traders.
Adesua Giwa-Osage, Arise News, Abuja.
Meanwhile, the death toll in the tanker explosion that occurred in Kacha local government area has risen to 42, while more than 60 people are critically injured and receiving treatment in hospital, according to the Niger State Emergency Management Agency, NSIMA. Residents blamed the poor condition of the Badegi-Agay Road for the accident, urging both federal and state governments to urgently rehabilitate the highway to prevent further loss of lives. Governor Mohammed Bago of Niger State has condoled with families of the victims and has directed those injured to be transferred to the teaching hospital in Gwagwalada in the Federal Capital Territory for medical attention. On Tuesday, a tanker was reported to have exploded after killing residents who were scooping petrol in Essa community within Kacha local government area of Niger State. In education, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, has announced the suspension of its 2-week warning strike, which began on October 13, 2025. Addressing a press briefing in Abuja, ASUU President Professor Chris Piwuna says the suspension of the warning strike, which was due to expire next Monday, follows renewed commitments from the federal government to address key issues raised by the union. The ASUU President says the decision to suspend the strike has nothing to do with the ministry's efforts, and that this is the first time in 8 years that the federal government was bringing a counter-offer different from the long-standing demands contained in the 2009 federal government ASUU agreement.
The Ministry of Education has failed woefully in addressing our issues, and we hope that this suspension will give them an opportunity to go back and look at these items. The third-party deductions that we talked about, our pension, promotion arrears, all these things they promised to do, they have not done any. So Nigerians would even wonder, if that is the case, why are we suspending the action? But we are suspending the action because we have seen goodwill on the part of the government team, and the appeal by individuals. You know, the Deputy Senate President personally discussed this matter with us, NLC, like I said, and honestly, we think it will also help our students and their parents, that they see that we are happy to come back to work. We are ready to resolve this matter, and if it is looked from that perspective, I think even our members will understand why we had to take this decision. As you are aware, the minister was not in the country when all this was happening. He's back, and we hope that he will look at that issue of no work no pay. But to be honest with you, the issue of no work no pay was a non-issue to us. It was not something that played any role in our decisions. And we even think that it was, whether it is lack of advice, or we really can't place our fingers on why the Ministry of Education took that action on day one, which shows bad faith. They were not ready to discuss with us. And so they decided they were going to issue threats. Well, we were not threatened. Like I said, we've taken this action based on those who have appealed to us, and we believe that this atmosphere is suitable, is conducive for our further discussions with the alleged Yahya Ahmed.
And our final stop today is with oil. The 650,000 barrels per day Dangote refinery is set to more than double its current refining capacity to about 1.4 million barrels per day, becoming the world's largest refining facility and surpassing the 1.36 million barrels per day refinery in Jamnagar, India. President and founder of the Dangote Industries Limited, Aliko Dangote, told S&P Global Commodity Insights in an interview that the management of the $20 billion refining and petrochemicals complex is also thinking of altering its current business model and is set to list up to 10% of its shares by next year. According to the 68-year-old founder, although the ambition to develop African energy independence is a Herculean task, it remains a labor of love, since no government in Africa is willing to put its money into such humongous projects. In Nigeria alone, S&P Global Commodity Insights projects that net petrol imports could more than double from 2026 to 2027 to hit almost 200,000 barrels per day by 2030, underpinned by economic development and rapid population growth. In July, Dangote unveiled plans to expand the refinery from its current 650,000 barrels per day to 700,000 barrels per day by the end of the year. Now the target is to reach 1.4 million barrels per day with no specified date. That's it. Okay, congratulations. It looks like despite how Herculean a task it is and how the humongous price being paid, Dangote refinery is not resting on its oars. But beyond that, good news, ASUU has suspended its strike. That's good. I will discover why in a moment, with an analysis. There are also, a few other stories around the work that the House of Reps have been doing. We've been focusing on them in recent times, and that is really good. Being able to see the outcome of what the lawmakers have been able to discuss, deliberate, and hopefully achieve. Vimba, your take on these stories?
Ooh, several stories, but I'll just take a couple this morning. First of all, we congratulate, Alhaji Aliko Dangote for continuing to have such a resilient spirit even in the face of such challenges, so much resistance to his plans and all that he's trying to do. One has to truly acknowledge that indomitable spirit that forges forward. Even when you hear the report of the number of incidents of sabotage from Nigerian staff that they've had, he still continues to push forward, and that's the spirit we all need to imbibe. And I hope that we can all come together to ensure that the spirit of sabotage, if I may call it that, from our own is something that becomes a thing of the past, and we all join hands in making sure that initiatives, businesses, organizations that move the country forward, move forward, and we can all be on in one accord with that. But let me begin with issues around financial accountability, especially fiscal accountability, as of course this news comes this morning that the Ministry of Finance and Coordinating Ministry of the Economy are ready to roll out. In fact, they've already done a pilot of the Treasury receipts that will allow for the digitization of revenue. This is a very positive development because we all know that one of our biggest challenges is the issue of leakages. But beyond leakages, I think there's a bigger ecosystem that needs to be addressed. First, let's touch on the issue of leakages. In the dailies today, there's an issue about $850 billion of unremitted crude oil proceeds that were not brought back into the national coffers from 1996 to 2014. If you look at that figure, you realize how deep we are with regards to leakages. Now, as much as this is export, it's not necessarily all entirely revenue that's coming to the tax authorities, but you can only imagine what percentage of that would be coming into government coffers and should be translated into some sort of fiscal action. So any move to block leakages is a fantastic step in the right direction. It's a developmental achievement. However, in doing so, there are two things that work hand in hand. There's the revenue efficiency, and then there's how that money is spent. Now, if we take a walk down history lane and we look at the relationship, how the breakdown in tax legitimacy happened in this country, it started from the colonial era. Now, we know that the colonialists were superb at raising money. They sent a lot of that money home to their country, but they used a lot of that money for infrastructure development. In fact, to this day, a lot of the infrastructure that we have in this country can still be accredited to development that happened during the colonial times. What was the problem? The problem is that there was no social contract. So you can't have development, you can't have roads, railway, all these beautiful things that look good on paper without a robust social contract. Social contract goes beyond building edifices, bricks and mortar. Social contract is about ensuring that citizens are taken care of, whether it be security, whether it be ensuring that human rights are observed, whether it be just ensuring that basic amenities are provided for. So now the buck is now on the table of the government, who have now passed several tax laws and are now optimizing the system that will be able to ensure that revenue collection is efficient. Now, how is that money going to be spent? It's up to the government to be able to validate the fact that even though I'm paying for I'm supplying myself with water, I'm supplying myself with electricity, I'm supplying myself with security that even though I'm doing all of those things, my payment of taxes is still a legitimate exercise. Now, that is what needs to happen. Beyond that, if you look at some of the sectors, because as much as the tax bill has been passed, the nitty-gritty of the details are starting to come out now. And some of them are causing a little bit of concern with some people. One of those is the capital gains tax. Now, we know that the stock exchange is one of the places that's seeing a lot of positive performance right now. I know Reuters brought a story around that yesterday. The Nigerian stock exchange is doing fantastically well. But the capital gains tax is of concern if it does come in January, because there are concerns that it'll take too much away from the progress that's being made with the stock exchange, and it might take away from that investment that's happening in that sector. So I think it's important to balance the responsibility of collecting those taxes with the duty of service delivery. Very quickly on the CCTV, $460 million, again, financial accountability. Now, this is a loan from the Good Luck Jonathan era. This loan was probed in 2019. It was probed again in 2023. So this is not the first time this is coming up to the fore in conversation around CCTVs in Abuja. I hope that this time around this investigation will be able to get down to the crux of the status of this project, because this loan that was taken from China Exim Bank is being serviced, but we're not seeing commensurate service delivery. Where are the CCTV cameras? What happened to the money? Because we are paying this money back as we speak. I yield the floor.
All right. Yield to you, Rufai.
Yes, this morning I would like to clap for the Tinubu government. And that's a good one. And that's a symbolic gesture. Because the thrust of every government should be accountability. And when they do well, I'll say it. And I can only imagine what Minister Wale Edun went through to get this passed. I'm sure a lot of centripetal forces and centrifugal forces in this government, if they had seen this coming, they would have been mounted roadblocks. But Mr. Wale Edun passed it. And commendations to Mr. Wale Edun and the Tinubu government this morning. And it's beginning to make sense. Maybe this was what he did to get some of the attacks he got recently. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Having this DevOps system where there's transparency and accountability as regards government receipts is a step in the right direction, because we have constantly tried to tackle the problem of accountability. Many years ago, we had something called the Oronsaye reports, which was also talking about streamlining government to be able to bring about shrewd management and accountability. In fact, we had the TSA, the single treasury account, so that monies will be able to come in, so that we're able to have a level of accountability. This one, with this ecosystem, which I think also should be made available to the public, is going to give you a real-time breakdown of governmental agencies and ministries. Let's even see what they are making real-time. And let's see how they are remitting all of this. This will remove the paraquoism and the brickbats some agencies do in this country. Anyway, we came from an era where agencies had multiple bank accounts, and God knows the corruption that goes on there. Even when the Auditor General audits and brings out the report of the shenanigan, nothing is done. So this we put in direct light, and this will also aid our job as journalists. So we can see real time what is going on. We can see how much agencies are making, government departments are making. We can see those that are not even making enough, and we are able to give an assessment on them. So it's a good one. But one other thing I would like to beg the government for. You see, as we go into a new tax dispensation, people want accountability. This same DevOps, I want you to do the same for the Nigerian budgets. Because you see, one of the easiest places to swindle a lot of Nigerians is through the budgets. When you have a budget and a budget cycle where some contracts are notorious as scam contracts, aka contracts are OG River, we don't want that. So with the way you did the DevOps, dear Tinubu government, do it in such a way that the budget, every line item It's on a real-time platform. We can see how much funding has gone into those projects. We can see the execution going on in the projects. And we can also see the accountability partners and the funding sources for such projects. I know it's going to be a big one, but it's going to be a game changer, where all the line items, over 4,000 pages, is put on a real-time database website. And we can even do data mining and data inferences using AI and other forms of technology. So that's the next part I want us to do. Also, if we can also extend it, apart from agencies and ministries and various government accounts, so that we can see in real time how much is in sovereign investment fund, sovereign wealth fund, government account, how much crude deposits and receipts are coming in, how much tax revenue is coming in and all of that, I will be so happy, because it's going to give us data. And like they say, data is life. Going further again and talking about what the National Assembly has been talking about, you see, if we had a platform where budgets is properly looked at and funding is looked at, we will not have a need to be going through this probe process we are not doing today. But anyway, I wish the National Assembly a lot of luck in their probe process. Concerning the accident that happened, I was talked about, I thought somebody came here yesterday and they were saying that they have done most of the roads in the country, they're in good shape. That Badeji road where there was an accident, you need to see how deplorable that road is. And you wonder, is this a road in Nigeria? So that's why when I'm saying that, when we are over-concentrating attention on one road, and you have many roads in shambolic condition, I thought some people said they were superheroes, that they've done most of the roads in the country. Nigeria has terrible roads. Very terrible according to world rankings. And we should fix them effectively. I hope the Minister of Education now will have a finality with ASUU. I hope he has not agreed that the 2009 agreement, there are parts of it that are left undone. I hope all what ASUU is asking for as regards the arrears and the payments that they were supposed to make, I hope they are going to make it. We don't want a case where we keep dilly-dallying and going back and forth. And Dangote, I give you Sadankata. It's not easy to do business in a country where you have a lot of vultures. They just want to eat you and finish you. But I give you Sadankata for your resilience this morning. And I think, as Dangote is talking about expansion now to 1.4 million barrels, dear NNPC, I want to quote Shino Peters. Ejawala ponti oyo. Isn't it time for you to leave this talk of raising 60 billion for refineries that they've not worked over these years, and you can't account for the 3 billion? And rather than taking prominent equity in this Dangote refinery that we know private sector is running, because things that have worked in this country that has to do with government is because private sector is running it. Look at NLNG. It's working because, you know, government takes a position, but also private sector are the ones run. That's why NLNG is a success. So rather than talking about 60 billion for expansion of your refinery, isn't it time to just see how you can pump money in Dangote refinery and Ejawolowo Aponti Oyo Elogbomila Kano with Dangote? I'm just saying it so that we'll not have the case where they will say we spend billions again on refinery and it turns into blending plant and nothing comes out again. NNPC, can you even show us the crude oil you are producing in your refinery?
Please, can you translate what you just sang?
Oh, Ejawolowo Aponti Oyo means please kindly remove your hands from the ogbono soup that is not drawing. Go and put the water for okra soup on fire, because that one will draw quickly and you can eat it. Yeah. That's why Shino Peter sang that song in the 90s, so I think 92, 93, yes. That was from the album in 91, 92, 93.
You're just making me hungry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for breaking that down. I've heard that song so many times, danced to it as well, but really never got the import of that. Thank you for bringing up this morning. Let me start by a very important story this morning, and that's on education. I say this because when the tanker tanker drivers were having issues. NLNG, not NLNG, the unions were having issues with Dangote refinery. It was a matter of national concern, as it ought to be. And that was because the talk on the impact of the economy, we're still talking about losses incurred by the days of strike. And the whole nation rallied round to talk about fixing this issue on time because of its impact. And I think at the time I'd mentioned that because of how critical it is an industry in terms of oil and gas, we take it very seriously. I hope that the same seriousness can be attached to two areas in our country, which is education and health. Oftentimes, when we have strike actions being announced by the health sector, especially the resident doctors, and ASUU, the education sector, we don't take it with as much seriousness and urgency as we do when it affects our pocket. And yes, money is important, revenue is important, it's a matter of national security. But when we look at education, we're looking at our future. And a country that does not invest in its future is not focused, does not have a vision, or doesn't have vision. I put that as a background to say that the same seriousness with which we attach to when there's a potential strike or there's a strike in the oil and gas sector is the same seriousness that should be attached to the education and health sector. What we've had in the past is coming to the negotiation table and nothing being done, with a number of people even attacking the lecturers for being greedy and saying, oh, why are they going on strike? The truth is that the condition of service in the education sector is deplorable. And that's why we've had in recent times a massive brain drain from, from lecturers and doctors who would better serve Nigeria, going out in droves because of the conditions of service. So let's go back to the 2009 agreement, which nothing has been done since then till today, 2025. What are they asking for? Very basic things. Conditions of service, new salary structure, earned academic allowances, earned being the operative word, retirement aid moving from 65 to 70, funding for revitalization, massive financial intervention in the education sector, university autonomy and academic freedom. These are the asks of these lecturers since 2009. Yet the government has been playing back and forth, ping pong, tennis with them. Not going, assuring them assurance, and nothing has happened. Well, Professor Piwuna, who is the ASUU president, is quite optimistic that this administration is different, and that they have said and shown good faith by giving a counter offer finally. And they've asked for 1 month to review, and on the basis of that, they've called off the strike, the warning strike, which ought to have ended on Monday. We can talk about the economy. We can talk about $1 trillion economy by 2030. But if we don't invest in the human resources, which is a critical success factor in all of this, then we're joking around, we're playing around. And that's why today I spent some time to really make a big case for education. Education in Nigeria has been languishing for years and under many administrations, and it's time that we actually take a serious look at it alongside the health sector. Now let me go on to very good news this morning around the launch of the FTR, which is the Federal Treasury Receipt, which is to keep track of monies that have been received from different ministries, departments, and agencies of government into federal accounts. What this is a broader part of the RevUp, which is a revenue optimization assurance platform, which was launched in August of this year. The idea for the Federal Ministry of Finance is more transparency and accountability. FTR has been launched alongside the Central Billing System, which also would standardize billing services in the federal government. This is what we've been calling for a long time. And that is why when agencies or departments or organizations, government-owned organizations like the NNPC, announce big profits, we say, where is the money and where has it gone to? Over the years, we have had a loss of revenue as a result of leakages, monies that cannot be accounted for, monies that have been announced, and when it comes to audits, we do not find the trace of it. And what this technology is looking to do is to address those issues. We can learn from previous reforms, for instance, the TSA. One is that would all MDAs adopt this? I believe that it is important to make it compulsory for MDAs to adopt this and monies to be, captured in this form digitally so that we can track how much money is coming in, contracts that are being awarded, how much money we pay for services, and where the Nigeria's taxpayers' money is going to. In January 2026, as I wrap up, we will launch the Nigeria Revenue Service, which is to streamline the tax collection services. We've often talked about the 10% tax to GDP ratio in Nigeria being too low. What we are saying is that people are paying taxes. What is not being captured is how they are paying taxes, and to widen the net to ensure that more people, in terms of organizations and some people who are falling through the cracks, actually pay the taxes. And very importantly, now we see that the money would be accounted for and would be used transparently. This is what Nigerians are calling for, and we applaud this. But the taste of the pudding is in the eating indeed. So we see how this will actually work out at the end of the day.